This was one of my best silage fields and it's been totally destroyed. This is another one of my silage fields which I just reseeded 2 years ago. It now has a fence down the middle of it, a pile of rubble lying in the corner, and the start of a new roadway which just all of a sudden stopped. Across the road is more fields which we've rented for the last 50 years, stripped of topsoil, and then just abandoned. What has went on? Why did someone destroy all of these fields and then suddenly just leave? Well, this week we are getting into the story of the A5, a new road scheme which has now been cancelled 3 times. A road scheme which has been in progress for the last 18 years, and a field road scheme which has cost the Northern Ireland Executive 120 million as of 2022. So probably around 150 million by today. 150 million of taxpayers' money, and this is the sum total of what has been achieved. This week's video is a very different video, but it's an important video that I want to make. I'm also recording this video in full view of a main road. So I'm just having to get over my embarrassment about people driving past and seeing me record this. Oh, it's fine. Let me give you a little bit of background. The A5 road scheme was meant to start in 2007, and the land was actually vested, hedges tore out, gateways taken up, and lanes put down in early 2010. But because of a legal challenge using the European Habitats Directive, the road scheme was stopped. All of the hedges were put back in. The reason why there is stone pillars is because the gates were then replaced. All of this land was drained at the expense of taxpayers, and I was paid to reseed it all back into grass. And that happened 15 years ago. The road scheme was then meant to go ahead in 2017, but again it got delayed and then cancelled due to a legal challenge. Which brings us up to 2024. The road scheme again was meant to proceed with a budget of £1.7 billion. And this land was all vested in November. The road scheme was happening. It was finally going ahead until last week. Last week, a group of landowners took a legal challenge to the High Court based around the Climate Change Act, and the judge upheld their case. All of the legal orders based around this road, including the vesting orders, were made null and void. Null and void because they had failed to properly consider the impact on the climate of building a new road. What? I'm going to move over here because everyone, I can just tell, is staring at me making this video beside the road. You know, one of the reasons that I started doing YouTube back in 2022 was because I was being censored on TikTok for talking about climate change. And I thought that YouTube wouldn't censor me as much, and so that was a key reason why I wanted to start it. To talk about net zero policies and how they were going to impact people's lives and impact the lives of farmers. And I have talked about climate change and net zero a lot over the last 2 years, mainly on TikTok because they stopped censoring me. But it's always very abstract. It's a lot of this will happen, this might happen, possiblies. But this is a real world example of the insanity of net zero and its associated policies. This is a £1.7 billion road scheme that was started. The land was vested. It has taken 18 years to get to this point. And because they didn't consider the carbon emissions, it stopped. And the astonishing thing is that all of this is going to have to be put back to the way it was. All of this is going to have to be undone. All of these fields are going to have to be left again the way they were found in November. That is going to cost taxpayers millions more. How do you fix that? They literally stripped the topsoil off, last week. Who owns all these stones? Because this land is no longer the government's. The vesting orders were cancelled. Can I tear out these fences and take back some of this land? It's insane. The whole thing is insane. So that's the background. That's how we've ended up with this mess. And I haven't really talked about this on any videos before. I've kind of just kept quiet about the fact that I'm losing 42 acres of land that I have rented for the last 60 years. So I won't be paid for any of this. And I've stayed quiet not because I'm happy to lose the land. It has a real impact on my business. It was actually a huge part of the reason why I ended up buying a feeder wagon, was to cope with the loss of all of this silage ground. And the reason why I haven't really mentioned it is because personally I'm quite conflicted. I really don't want to lose the land, and it has a real impact on my business, running into potentially tens of thousands of pounds a year. But I do understand the need for a country to be able to build infrastructure. So because of that conflict, I've personally kind of been unsure about whether I want this to happen or not, so I haven't mentioned it. But once they actually started building the road, once the land was taken, once the work had started, personally, I just want them to build the road. Like, the whole thing is mental. Let's move to another location, another silage field I lost, where the amount of work they have done is even greater. The destruction is even greater. And I want to just give you all a reality check of just how devastating the current climate change legislation is going to be for our country. Just how idiotic our politicians who voted for this stuff are, and just how incompetent our civil service and our government actually are. And we're going to finish this video off with an open-ended question, which is, what do all of us citizens do about this? What do all of us taxpayers do about a government and a civil service who can spend £150 million with nothing to show for it? This is another one of my silage fields. Again, I've rented this so I won't get paid any compensation money for this loss. We have a new telegraph pole plonked right in the middle of the entrance. More new telegraph poles moved in the distance. Countless fences throughout the field. Giant piles of clay. New gate posts. New stoned entrances. There is so much destruction, it's honestly hard to believe. I'll walk down here and show you this bit too. It's just absolutely mind-boggling that we can end up in this situation. To have spent this much money, this much of our taxpayers' money, over 18 years, and have nothing to show for it. And the reality is, there is someone to blame. The people to blame for the ruination of our country is senior civil servants. Politicians actually don't make decisions, and I don't think a lot of people truly understand that. The people who make decisions, terrible decisions, are civil servants. People who work in what Liz Truss calls the blob. Like, look at this. Just abandoned. Absolutely insane. This is still my silage field. Again, new telegraph poles put up in the middle of the field. New entrance dug. This used to be a big, tall, long hedge the whole length of this road. And they're going to put this back to the way it was. Absolutely mental. Saying stuff like it's civil servants who actually run the country does make me sound like a bit of a conspiracy theorist. But I can prove it to you. And I will use two examples. First example is the inheritance tax changes to farmland. That suggestion was not a Labour policy idea. That suggestion came from within HMRC. And George Osborne, in his podcast Political Currency, actually said that when he first entered the Chancellor's office, that same suggestion to put inheritance tax on farms came across his desk. So it is a suggestion, a policy suggestion from senior civil servants, which is spanning decades. And it was just Rachel Reeves who was stupid enough to go with it. Second example, on a very similar theme was the decision to remove the winter fuel payments by the Labour government. That appeared nowhere in the manifesto. It was not a policy decision that Labour was going to do, but it was a suggestion from within Treasury. If I was elected as an MLA, which is a member of the Legislative Assembly here in Northern Ireland, tomorrow, I would have a huge brief. And I would be relying on my civil servants who are claiming to be experts in the topic to inform me about what decisions I should make. So it's not a conspiracy theory. It's just the way our government works, that at the end of the day, it is senior civil servants who are making the decisions. Who designed the disastrous NAP proposals, which we had here in Northern Ireland just a few weeks ago? It was idiotic civil servants. Who designed the climate change bill, which is the reason why all of this was stopped? It wasn't any politician, it was idiotic civil servants, also known as the blob. There's a car coming on my video and this is so embarrassing. And we have now got ourselves in a position in this country where we have so much bureaucracy, we have so many laws, that really stupid decisions have to be made by these idiotic civil servants. I honestly don't think voters realise just how devastating the net zero agenda actually is going to be for people's living standards. Net zero is already making all of our energy bills extortionately expensive. We are paying the highest price in Europe for energy. Another van, shoot me now. Oh my goodness, I'm never recording outside again. The reason why people's food prices are now so high is also because of net zero. And it's only going to get much worse. The whole thing is actually just mental. We are governed by morons. And to have a real world physical example of the sheer incompetence of government is very, very useful. But this is not an isolated example. This is just one that has affected me personally. Another car driving past whilst I'm recording a video. Oh my days. Like, they built a £100 million tunnel for HS2 to protect some bats. I have had at least 50 surveys on my land to do with this road scheme. Another van, oh my days. Just gonna stop after this. Like, I can never show my face in public again. And then 50 surveys were to do with things like the newt population, or if the badgers on my land were related to the badgers that they were displacing for the road. Total insanity. So let's get to our conclusion. Another car. Oh my days. What am I doing here? I'm just gonna look over here. Just looking at my land. How is it so busy? This is a small road. So what are we gonna do about it? How are all of us going to save our country from the ridiculousness of bureaucracy? Well, if this was the 17 or 1800s, we could probably just have a revolution. But unfortunately, in the modern era, that doesn't really work. And instead, we have to somehow get our elected officials to actually do something, to actually start firing some of these people who are making such ridiculous decisions. But how do you do that? I don't know. Right, I'm gonna have to move. There is too many people laughing at me. Okay, I think I'm slightly more hidden from the road here. So let's recap and I will deliver my core point. And then we will have a quick chat if there's actually any solutions. I have been talking about climate change having a disastrous effect on our country for years. And I finally have a real world example which has impacted me. The A5 Western Transport Corridor. A project which has spanned 18 years, being cancelled 3 times because of environmental legislation, has cost taxpayers almost £150 million, destroyed my fields twice, and at the end of it all, has achieved absolutely nothing. It is the perfect example of bureaucracy destroying our country. I did give you a few other examples such as HS2 and their £100 million bat cave, and honestly I could give you examples for days. Politicians and civil servants have absolutely no respect for our money. And that annoys me so much. Everything that happens now in this country takes twice as long as expected and costs 3 times as much because of the quagmire of bureaucracy. And the Climate Change Act and Net Zero just adds on top of the existing bureaucracy that's there. Adds a layer on top which is totally nonsensical. Like, just think about it. We are paying the highest energy prices in Europe, and yet the UK has vast reserves of natural gas and oil, except our government doesn't want to drill it. So instead, we import it. What? So what are we going to do? How are we going to save ourselves from the never-ending quagmire of bureaucracy, which is costing all of us millions and billions of pounds? Well, I wish I had an answer, but I really don't. We are electing politicians who are then just taking direction from senior civil servants. Senior civil servants who functionally can never lose their job no matter how much they screw up. And our politicians just aren't motivated to try and make significant change because they're dealing with 4-year election cycles. And you really can't fix much in 4 years. I don't know. I really don't know. I think for me, the A5 has just brought all of this to the surface. It's kind of just really made me sit down and think about all the stuff I've already known for a long time. That Western civilization is genuinely on the decline. And no one seems to be able to do anything about that. But someone needs to do something about that. And I guess in some sort of a way, me deciding to make this video this week was an attempt to do something. A very small, puny, insignificant attempt to do something. And I guess that is my best idea at this point, is just to talk about it and try and highlight just how insane what is happening in our country actually is. We need to get net zero dropped. We need to get politicians into power who are willing to take on some of the huge issues. Like the fact that we are controlled by civil servants, not the people that we elect. And all of us as voters and taxpayers absolutely do have a responsibility to put some thought into who we vote for. Mental. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. I understand this was a very different video. I just feel like I needed to vent. Hopefully all of you enjoyed hearing me vent. I will see you next week. We'll be back on the farm doing some actual productive work. If you have any suggestions on how we fix this country, drop them down in the comment section. I would genuinely love to read them. And if you do enjoy this kind of stuff, which is a little bit different from farming, please do give this video a like. Help share it with other people. It's an important message and people need to know this stuff. See you next week.